I hope everyone is doing well. Inshallah, today we'll be discussing a concept called the Shaddah. Before we discuss this concept, let's do a quick review of the concepts that we covered thus far. Okay. We're going to do the concepts, the review in a logical order of how the concepts work in Arabic and not necessarily in the way that we learned them. So although the sukoon we done last, the sukoon actually goes is first actually in the logical order of the way and which the concepts operate, and we'll see this now. So let's take the letter meme. If we have the letter meme with no fatha, no kasra, no dhamma, no harakat, no mad, it will just be m. And we said that when the letter has no harakat, it will get this sign over here on top called a sukoon. Okay, so let's see in a word like we practiced. So here's a word, hamdu, like alhamdu, hamdu. Okay, so let's see another word, qalam, qalam, qalam. Okay, that's a sukoon. The second concept that we're gonna review is what happens when the letter gets a vowel. Okay, so the first vowel, short vowel that we spoke about is the fatha, which has the sound. If you add it to the meme, it's going to be ma. For example, malaka, malaka, malaka. Okay. If we add a kasra to the meme, which is the e sound, it becomes mi. For example, hamida, hamida, hamida. Okay. If we add a dhamma, which is the u sound, the meme will become mu. For example, qalamu, qalamu, qalamu. Okay. And these are the short vowels known as the harakat. Now, harakat in Arabic means movement. So the sukoon means no movement, literally translated, and harakat means movement. So we went from the sukoon to the harakat. Now, once we have the harakat, which is the movement, we then spoke about the mad, and the mad means to stretch. Okay. So if we have the meme with a fatha, for example, ma over here, we want to stretch the fatha sound, the to a, add the alif mad, and this becomes ma. For example, maliki, maliki. Okay. If we have a meme with a kasra, mi, and we want to stretch the sound, we want to extend the sound, become mi, we add a ya mad. And it will become mi. For example, shamima, shamima. Okay. If we want to extend the dhamma, we have mu, we want to say mu, we want to add the waw mad, which extends the dhamma from u to u. So this will become mu. For example, hamuka, hamuka, hamuka. That actually means in-laws, your mother-in-law, father-in-law. Okay. So that this is the mad. Okay. So that covers the concepts that we spoke about thus far. And it actually also makes up the vowel system in Arabic. No vowel, which is sukoon, the short vowel, which is the haraka, and the long vowel, which is the mad. And these are the most important concepts when it comes to Arabic. You absolutely need those to have the ability to read at all. Then there are another two markings, right, that you'll find on words all the time. They are not vowels. However, they do have a certain effect on the letter. But that's essentially what these markings are. It's telling you how to read this letter. Because the Arabs early Arabs, when they started writing the Arabic, they never wrote it with any markings because they would see the letters. There'll be no markings, that they'll know what the word is because of the letters in the word. Later on, there became a need as Islam spread and a lot of non-Arabs entered in Islam. They needed to have some system to help those who might not have that natural ability to identify the words. So a system to help them. And so these markings were developed. So the ones who cover those four, those are the basic vowel system. That's the vowel system. It's the most important. Now there are other markings that have other effects. Okay. So we have two that we have left that we're going to cover in the course. So the first one is called the Shaddah. And it appears, as you see here, like a W, a small W above the letter. Now we want to discuss the Shaddah. How does it appear in a text? How does it look? Does it always look like that? What's its function? What does it do to the letter? And how to apply it? Okay. So the Shaddah, let's look at the symbol over here. So let's look at the scenarios in which the Shaddah appear. The first one is this one over here. If you look at this letter, the letter Mim, you'll see there's a Fatha on the Mim. We see a Fatha there. We also see this mark that we spoke about now called the Shaddah. And if we critically analyze the shape, we'll conclude that, okay, we have a letter and the Shaddah will appear, might appear above the letter. This is one scenario. Also, we see there's a Fatha as well. Okay, so let's draw that one conclusion. The Shaddah might appear above the letter and the letter will have its Fatha as well. So Shaddah with a Fatha. Okay. Here's another scenario. Here we have another word. The letter Sheen, we can see there, has a Kasra as normal, but it also has this Shaddah that we spoke about. And if we look where the Shaddah is, we'll see again, it's above the letter. Okay, another conclusion. So it will appear above the letter. However, there might also be a Kasra involved as well. The Kasra is where it normally is on the letter at the bottom. Okay, let's look at the final scenario. Here we have a letter, again, with a Shaddah, so letter Jim, and it has its Dhamma as usual on top of the letter, but that Shaddah is there. It's like this addition. Okay, so it might appear above the letter. It will always appear above the letter, and it might have a Shaddah as well. So these are the three scenarios, right? And obviously before the letter with the Shaddah can be anything, after the Shaddah doesn't matter. We're looking at the letter with the Shaddah. Okay, so let's draw one conclusion. We see that in each scenario, the Shaddah is always above the letter. Okay, so that's the first conclusion. It will appear above a letter. So you will never see it at the bottom or anything like that. So that's where it appears. Okay. Secondly, we see that in each scenario, it has one of the harakat. So it might appear with a fatha on a letter. The letter might have its fatha and the shadda is there. Or letter have its kasra, the shadda is there. Or the letter has a dhamma and the shadda is there. So these are the three scenarios that you will have when you see a letter with a shadda. It will be one of these scenarios. The letter will either have a fatha, kasra, or dhamma. So it appears with a fatha, kasra, or dhamma. Okay. That's in terms of the shape. When you see the shadda, okay, there's a shadda. Okay, you identified there's a shadda there. That line is there. Okay. Let's look at the function. Right? Now, so I'm going to need you to participate with me in this. Right? So just let's work on what you see. So base your answer based on what you see and not what you necessarily know or what how it should be pronounced, just on what you see. Right. So here we have this word here, Jannati. Right. Focus on the noon. Right. The noon has a fatha. Let's add a shadda to the noon. So let's look at the transliteration and let's see what's happening. Okay. Let's have a look at that. Compare the two, the same letters, same vowels. Is this shadda on the noon? Another example. Fine. Umi. Let's add a shadda on the meme. See what happens. Okay. Final example. Add a shadda on the meme. See what happens. Okay. So based on what you see, can you let me know what do you think the function of the shadda is? What does it do to a letter when it appears on that letter? With the letter fatha, kasra, dhamma. So you can take a moment and you can type. Okay, someone says double. Doubles it. Good answers. If you can just type agree, extending, emphasize the sound of the letter. Okay, so far we have double, we have someone said extending, someone emphasize, similar to the jerking sound, pull sound, right? So now this is why it's actually important, right? So there's a reason why I brought this exercise and why I asked you this and why I said, don't focus on how it's pronounced, only focus on what you are seeing here. And I'm going to tell you why for that. Okay, so let's conclude. And shukran to everyone for answering. This is very important. All your answers were very, very important. Very, very important. No one was wrong. Double the sound of the letter, so then it's stressed. Okay, that is actually a very good answer. And I'm going to come back to that answer. Double the sound of the letter so that it's stressed. Okay, because it's both. So look over here. Based on what we're seeing, the function of the shadda is that it doubles the letter. Okay? But remember, none of you were wrong in the answer that you gave. It doubles the letter. But this comes the issue, because if I tell you double the letter, that does not tell you how to pronounce it. Right? If I just tell you double the letter, it doesn't necessarily tell you how exactly it should be pronounced in Arabic. And I'm going to give you an example. So who knows? Oh, let me type in here. So let me type a few words. Look here. The word mommy. Let's take the word daddy. In other words, let's say caddy. Let's say cherry. Okay, cherry. So all these words over here, the letters are the first letter, mommy, the M is doubled. Daddy, the D is doubled. Caddy, the D is doubled. And in cherry, the R is doubled. But what does that mean in the English language? Right? It could be just for spelling, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to add emphasis. It could be other things. Because if mommy didn't have double M, I would maybe say mommy. I wouldn't show how to. So in English, it has a specific purpose. So the first thing we say, okay, doubles the letter. Fine. Now we want to know, what does doubling the letter, how is that applied in Arabic? So now, to give an example, who knows what the Arabic word for paradise is? But type it in English. And the Arabic word for hellfire, and type it in English. Yes, okay. Let's get hellfire. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me type it. Let me just type the two, right? Now, as you can see in those two words, the letters are doubled. There's an N that is doubled. And in the second word, also an N that is doubled. Now, if that was English, you would probably read that as Jannah and Jahannam. Jahannam. What happened to the N? It's doubled, but what does that mean for English? But now, because we know how that is pronounced in Arabic, it will be pronounced as, listen to the N, right? In the Jannah. Jannah. Listen to Jahannam. Jahannam. Jannah. Jahannam. Look at the difference. So it doubles the letter. The shadda doubles the letter. Now we want to know, how do we apply that in Arabic? So now we move on to the next step. Did anyone get that point so far? That is the difference between its application. You say double the letter, English. So you don't want to be focusing on when you're applying how to pronounce a shadda, don't think double. Double, you think of, yes, what's the function? What does that do? It doubles the letter. Okay, now how do I apply? How do I read a doubled letter in Arabic? That's what we're going to move on to next. One last example, if I can give another example. Let's say the word Allah. Allah is an Arabic word, and there's a shadda on the lam. So that's why we don't say Allah. So let me type. So you see how I type? Double L. So that is why if we read it in English, and that's why English speakers would read that as Allah. But we know it's Allah. The emphasis there. And the same like Muhammad. If I type it over here, this is the, let's say, the correct transliteration, the closest to the, right? You'll see this double M. So we might say in English, Muhammad, or like some in the West will say Muhammad. But in Arabic, double letter, Muhammad. Like you hear the adhan, Ashhadu anna Muhammad, you hear that emphasis. Now that's what we're going to speak about. So, okay. So let's see the operation, how it happens. So here we go. Janati. That's Janati. Take note of the noon. Janati. Okay. Let's add a shadda on the noon. There's a shadda. So let's see what happens. It doubles the noon. Then how do we read that? Jannati. Jannati. You're going to emphasize the noon, the letter a little. Jannati. Right? So you will read it. So obviously you can't read ja, na. You have to read it with the letter before it. Janna. And then T can be on its own. So Jannati. Jannati. Let's look at this word here. Muhammadu. Muhammadu. Let's add a shadda on the meme. And watch this. So from Muhammadu, it doubles, but this is how we read it. Muhammadu. Muhammadu. So always remember that. A doubled letter in Arabic absolutely means you have to emphasize. Muhammad. Just hold it a bit. It's not very challenging, but there is a challenging aspect to it. It's really not. If you follow the concept and you practice enough, eventually it will come if you are struggling with it. Okay, Muhammadu. Okay, let's do some examples. Jahanamu. Jahanamu. Oh, ma. Jahanama. Add the shadda, double the noon. Jahannama. Jahannama. So you will read it in Arabic just as you see it in English, the transliteration. However, that double letter is emphasized. You won't see a doubled letter for nothing. Don't just double. If it doubles, it's a shadda. You need to emphasize that letter. Okay. Razaqa. Razaqa. Add the shadda on the zay. See what happens? Razzaqa. Razzaqa. Now you don't have to press the letter. You don't have to say raz, then it becomes challenging. Just raz, just need to hold it, stress it, emphasize it a little. Razzaqa. Just a little. Okay. Here we go. Umi. Umi. This is how we say the word when we speak, colloquial, we say Umi as in my mother. But the meme actually has a shadda. So that's Umi, the yamad at the end. But the meme actually has a shadda. So let's add the shadda. See, now it's doubled, but we have to emphasize the doubled letter. Ummi, Ummi, my mother. Okay. Jadi, Jadi. Right there, it doesn't have any meaning. Jadi. So as soon as we add the shadda, becomes Jaddi, Jaddi, Jaddi. So you just emphasize a little, Jaddi. And that means my grandfather. Okay? Shari, Shari. You see what happens when we add a shadda on the ra? Becomes double R. but we're going to pronounce this as sharri. You see a bit of an emphasis on the ra, sharri, sharri. So you just need to tune your mind into when the letter doubles in Arabic, it has a different application to English, right? It's going to be a stress on the letter, emphasize, and that's it. Sharri, like in sharril waswasil khannas. Okay, here we go. Dusu, dusu, do, su. Let's add a shadda on the scene. See what happens. From dusu, dusu, dusu. Everything in the word remains the same. Whatever comes after the letter is the same. Whatever before the letter is the same, except that the letter is stressed. Right? So that's why in the sense that this concept I think it is the easiest concept to understand. But the issue comes in because it's the easiest concept to understand and to explain. Normally, students, they spend a short time on it because they think, I'll double the letter and finish and they move on. Because you kind of figure that you solved it, right? I just need to double the letter. But in doubling the letter becomes an issue because can you imagine trying to read these letters with an English application of doubling the letter? So then you are not going to stress the letter, right? You're going to say shari and umi, you are going to give it an English application. So remember, double the letter, yes, then stress the letter. Okay. So now, in a nutshell, that is actually it in terms of the shadda, completely done. No extra shapes, no nothing. It's actually done. But the shadda, the secret of the shadda lies in practice, specifically the shadda. Because, like I said, with all the letters, once you find the sound, you add the harakat. Great. With the mad, you just add it on to the short vowel and just give it a long pull, sorted. Remember we said with the sukoon, things become tricky with the sukoon. Why? Because with the sukoon, the letter has no vowel. So now the sound of the letter is exposed. It's clarified, right? Like the ayn, when it has sukoon, ta'alamu, you need to really know where the letter is. You need to, after a lot of practice, you can only apply the sukoon properly. If you practice enough, then you really found the letter. That's sukoon. The shadda, on the other hand, even though it's so easy to understand the concept, application becomes challenging because the shadda is a stressed version of the letter. So can you imagine that? Can you imagine having a stressed version of an already difficult letter? So all the examples we use here was easy, the easy letters, right? Application. Now imagine the ayn and the qaf and the kha and the ta and ba need to be practiced. So now that is why it's easy to explain the shadda and not practice those letters and off you go. But the problem when you come to the letters, you're going to challenge. So that is why what I'm going to do now, we're going to run through examples, 2 examples of each letter, just to make sure we leave absolutely nothing out. Quickly, we're going to run through the practice of each letter. And the secret is practice, right? So, and why I've done this also as well, also as an investment for the future for you. So when you do want to practice the shadda, you can go through this entire practice, the video, and you can work through the entire practice, right? And you can practice all the letter, or if you're looking for a specific letter, how do I say it with a shadda? And you can go again, refer to the video and go to that letter. That's why I put it all in here. And also so that you also have an opportunity to practice all the letters now. Okay. So we're going to need some energy and motivation to go through all the letters. It's not going to take long, it'll probably take less than 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Okay. But you obviously have to go with me. Right. So let me add that last point there. The shadda emphasizes the letter. So we discussed that. So that is there. That you can go through that and remember that. Okay. Now, for starting the practice, as a word of encouragement, obviously, I want to talk about pancakes, right? So For those of you who've tried to make pancakes, if your pancakes is still looking like this, or whether your pancakes is like this, round, fluffy, and soft, any cook will tell you, and I'm sure you will tell us, you will tell me, that the only thing that is between this type of pancakes and that type of pancakes is firstly some basic knowledge, knowing how to apply, and lots of practice. So practice makes perfect. So let's start, okay, with the letter ba. Okay, there we go. Shut down the ba. Rabbaka. 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 And I'll put the translation at the bottom. If you learned the Shaddah before, you can ignore the transliteration. If you're a beginner, the transliteration is there to help you. Rabbaka. Rabbaka. Okay. Rabbi. My Lord. Rabbi. Rabbi. Like Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rabbil Alameen. See the emphasis on the ba. The ta. Qattala. Qattala. So qattala. Qattala. That actually means to slaughter, to murder. Muttaqeen. Muttaqeen. Muttaqina. 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 Letter tha. Mathala. Shut down the tha. Mathala. 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 See, the letter is doubled, but that's not the most important part. The important thing is the letter is going to be stressed. Letter tha. Yabuthu. 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 Letter doubled and then stressed. Okay. The letter Jim, right? So this letter is normally the letters that the sound is a bit blocked, becomes challenging, but these letters need a bit of practice, right? So there's no bounce, there's no jerking sound or anything. You're just going to say, like this word is here, hajju, like we go on hajj, hajju, hajju. So you just have to hold it there a bit. Hajju, hajju. Here we go. Najjina, najjina. So najji, najjina. So again, that the emphasis aspect is very important. Najjina, that means save us. Here we go. Ha, this word over here. Ha with the shadda, right? Shahatu. It's a bit stressed. You don't have to press harder on the harder to shah at your throat. You just need to hold it a bit. Shahatu. That means actually bigger. Shah. And you'll see, you'll pronounce the mad with the ha as one. So we can't say shah. So we have to say the whole thing together. Shahatu. 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 Sahara. 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 Okay. Kha. Sakhara. 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 Okay, we done last lesson, the Hamza. We said the Hamza may appear on top of a waw, ya, or alif. And we said that once you see the Hamza on top of any letter, ignore the letter and only pronounce the Hamza. The letter is only a housing for the Hamza. Okay, so this is you a. Be careful saying you wa. You a. You akhi. Right, so here's it with a kasra. You akhi. You akhira. You akhira. You akhira. That means to delay. The letter dal, again, one of those letters that is a bit blocked. And we all know this word. This words mean love and compassion. مودة مودة مودة. You see over there, it's doubled. مودة. Okay. شدة شدة Shaddah. And here's the interesting part. There's the Shaddah, that is actually the concept we're dealing with. And we see the Shaddah has a Shaddah in it on the dal. Shaddah. Shaddah. So as long as you are stressing, if you're hearing, it's kind of like you are holding the letter Shaddah. It's kind of like a pause, but be careful not to cut. Like don't say Shaddah. Like don't say Shad, and then you stop. Da. Don't do that. It should be together. Shaddah. As long as you're doing that kind of stop, you most probably pronouncing it fine. Dhal كذبت 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 means to deny. كذبت. Okay. كذاب كذاب. You see, instead of كذاب, كذاب. Stressing the dhal, that means liar. كذاب كذاب. Okay, let's look at the letter Ra. كرة 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 كرة. Double the letter means stress. Here we go. شري 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 شري. With a zay. رزاق 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 رزاق. Here we go. أزا أزا أزا. So what helps sometimes, if you want to make it much easier, you can imagine, instead of double, you can imagine it as tripling or quadrupling the letter. Azza. That kind of will sort out the stressing, emphasizing part, right? But I mean, in transliteration, you're going to see it doubled. So we're going with that. Okay. Sin. Dassaha. 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 Yassarna. Yassarna. When the sukun come after the shadda. Yassar. As normal. Na. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنِ. That ayah, famous ayah. يَسَّرْنَا. We made it easy. Sheen. وَبَشِّرِ 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 وَبَشِّرِ. Here we go. غَشَّاشُ. It's actually not found in the Quran, but this word actually means a cheater or like a con man. غَشَّاشُ. So غَشَّاشُ. غَشَّاشُ. غشاش. صاد, right? قصة. So instead of قصة, you're just going to stress it a bit. قصة. قصة. And then you pronounce the fatha. قصة means story. قصة. قصة. Okay. Yeah, in Surah Yusuf, نقص. 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 So instead of قص, قص, stressing the sword a bit. نقص, that means we narrate to you. نقص. Like a little dot. So here we have, like in Surah Fatiha, وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Here we go. The dot has a shadda. That's why we shouldn't say وَلَا ضَا. وَلَا ضَا. There's no shadda on the dot. The dot should have a shadda. So وَلَا ضَا. وَلَا ضَا. وَلَا ضَا. You just stress it, emphasize. Even though this is the hardest letter to emphasize, because it's so heavy and full. And remember, the tongue need to be like a bowl. But just try to keep it just a little, that you know you're stressing the letter and you're not saying wala da, and you should go wala da. Okay, wala da, and here we go. Faddala, that's to prefer. Faddala, faddala, faddala. Some practice needed here on this word. Faddala, or on this letter in general. Okay. Letter ta again. Again, it's one of the letters that don't have a sound. The sound is blocked when you say the shadda, so it can seem difficult, but you just need to follow the same strategy that you've been following with all the other letters. So, like Umar, the companion, Umar ibn al-Khattab. So his surname has a ta in there. Khattab. So we don't say Umar ibn al-Khattab. We say Khattab. 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 Right? Khattabi. So Khattabi. Khattabi. Here we go. This means duck. Battata. The same method. Batta. So instead of batta, batta. Battata. 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 Va, a bit easier, but still difficult because remember it's full. It has the tongue need to be like a bowl shape, right? So look at this word over here. Wal-zalimu. So instead of wa, stressing the letter. Wal-zalimu. And then you go ahead and read whatever, the fatha and the mad. Wal-zalimu. 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 Here we go. This word actually means luck. Hazzu. 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 Now when I'm applying the shadda, I'm applying it in the maximum emphasis that is allowed. The reason for that is so that you can clearly hear. So you can either do it the way I'm doing it, hazzu, or you can go a little less, hazzu, hazzu. That's fine. However, I'm going extreme or the maximum, so that if you go less than that, you will still be in the range, right? So hazzu. Hazzu. Okay. Ain. Here we go. Now, luckily, let me show you over here. The ain and the ghain with the shadda don't appear a lot in Arabic texts in general, but especially in the Quran. I couldn't find a letter with a ghain, with a shadda. Maybe there is, I couldn't find. And with the ain is very little, right? So you don't have to worry about this, but you should attempt it at least anyway, right? The ain at least. So let's practice this word over here. This word actually appears in the Quran, right? Fa'alu. So instead of fa'a, 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 fa'a. And obviously, to say this, you need to know where the ain is. But it doesn't mean you can't try. Even if you can't say the ain yet, try as best as you can. Remember, we said with the ain, it's all about trying your best. This is no different. So even if you're saying fa'alu, perfect. If that was your best, that's perfect because it will come around. Fa'alu, fa'alu, fa'alu. Okay, and you see the ghain, don't worry about it. Okay, it's a fa, easy. Huffadhu. That's a plural of hafiz, someone who memorized. We could say the Quran or anything. That's a plural. Huffadhu. Like we say huffadh. And those you know, when you type huffadh, you type a double F. Double F in Arabic pronunciation, emphasized. Huffadhu. Right? So not huffadh, huffadhu. Okay, so the next time you say those words, you say huffadhu. Okay, huffadhu. Here we go. It's a Quranic word. Tanaffas. Tanaffa. Tanaffas. The scene with the sukoon at the end. Tanaffas. Tanaffas. That actually means to manifest itself. Qaf. Here we go. We all know the word haq. Haq means you're right. When it has a shadda, so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to stress the letter, not too much, not stress anything beyond what it already is. You're just going to kind of hold it a bit. So instead of haqi, 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 you're just going to hold your tongue there where you're pronouncing the qaf. Haqi, just hold it for a bit. Haqi, that means my right, or what's due to me. Haqi, okay? Talaqqa, talaqqa. Again, laqqa. So instead of laqa, laqqa, I'm just holding and stressing the qaf a bit before I let it go. Okay, that's talaqqa. Kaf, you know, some people's name is mudhakkir, right? Now here we go. The kaf is emphasized, right? Double kaf, double the kaf, the K is doubled, right? So mudhakkir, mudhakkira, mudhakkira, dhakkira, right? So you don't have to panic. It's just as you're reading it in the English over there, dhakki. But it's just that when you have the double K, double letter, just stress it a bit. Dhakkira, mudhakkira. Bakkata, 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 bakkata. As you read it in English, just emphasize that is actually the name of Makkah, one of the names of Makkah. Makkah, or can go called Bakka. It's ancient name. So Makkah, long time ago, it was also known as Bakka. Okay. Okay. There we go. We're almost at the end. So we got the lam. Jallahu, 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 Jallahu. Right? Like when we say Allahu Azza wa Jal. Right? That Jal is actually this word here. Jallahu, Jallahu, Jallahu. Okay? Jallahu. Double L, and we see how it emphasized and stressed. Kalla, a very common word in the Quran. So not kala. And remember, we said how the lam looks with the alif mad. Alif mad will look like that. We said the lam has a special shape. Kalla, kalla. Easy. Kalla. Okay. Mim, we done this word. Muhammadu. Muhammadu. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammadu. 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 Okay. Fa'amma, very common word in the Quran. It means as for those. Fa'amma, fa'amma. So I will stress the meme. Noon, right? Jannata, Jannata. See there? Jannata. Look how that double N, look what it done. Look how much emphasis given. Jannata. And Jahannam. 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 Right? We said, so the Shaddah, we can also conclude that it must be read just like the Sukoon with the letter before it as one unit. Right? And we see the letter there after the Noon is also a Sukoon, so it must be read with the letter before it as one unit as well. So that's why that whole thing is just one unit. Jahannam. Now I want to say something for those who want the extra information. You can write it down. All right. Quickly, the meme and the noon specifically, when it has a shadda, it will be emphasized and prolonged extra than all the other letters of the shadda. Specifically, the meme and the noon, which has the shadda, is going to be prolonged. So instead of, so like for example, with the lam, jallahu. However, the meme, Muhammadu. The noon, jannata. Fa'amma. Jahannam. Now that's a tajweed rule, right? So if you're just speaking Arabic, you don't have to do that. Tajweed, however, the meme, noon, which has a shadda, prolong that nasal sound. It's a little longer, right? It's almost like a mad. Okay, so you can just write that down. It's extra information. Okay, the letter Ha, the last three letters. For example, Tahara. So let's bring the English up. You see there, double H. Tahara. 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 The challenging one to pronounce, needs some practice. Here we go. So Allah is Al-Wahhab, right? So you'll see Wahhabu. Wahhabu. Right? The granter or the bestower. Wahhabu. A little emphasis. Remember, like I said, I'm doing the maximum. So if you're not doing the same like me, that's fine. But you know, like I say, you reach for as high as you can. Wherever you settle, long as wherever you settle, you're in the right place. Here we go. So someone asked before, what's the difference between the wow and the ya with the shadda? So we're going to see now. Wow with the shadda, we said the wow done the last lesson is with the fatha wa, like W, wa. When it has a shadda, when it emphasizes a little, so instead of tawa, tawa, taw, scolded there a bit. Tawaba, tawaba. Bring the English up. Tawaba. Right? So that actually means the one who accepts repentance. Here we go. Quwwata means power. Quwwata. Quwwata. That means power. Quwwata. You see how we're just emphasizing the wow? You don't need to pronounce a different letter. You just need to hold it a bit. Quwwata. Instead of quwwa, quwwa. Just holding it before you say whatever it is on there, whatever's coming after it. And like we say, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata. Shadda on the wow. Okay, here we go in Surah Fatiha. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. So sometimes we say iyaka, iyaka. You see, the shadda, the ya has a shadda. So instead of iyaka, it's going to be iyaka, iyaka. See how we're stressing it and holding it a bit? Iyaka. So there, if I write it in English, you can see it's simple. But if you understand what we're doing so far, you should be able to read it correctly by looking at the English. So if you are new and the Arabic words is still frightening you, fine, look at the transliteration, but as long as you know, when you see a doubled letter, right, and then what you do is emphasize and stress. Don't read it like English, okay? Iyaka. Okay, you have the last word, it actually means intention, right? Intention. Niyatu, right? Niyatu. And bring the English up. So you can see double Y. All you want to do is just stress it a bit, right? Niyatu, 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 intention. That brings us to the end of the lesson. I hope you find, let me know how you find the practice. I hope you find the practice beneficial. And like I said, this is a long journey ahead.